Picture this. You pull into a gas station, and a smiling attendant rushes over, humps your gas, wipes your windshield, even checks your oil. Or you step into a department store elevator, and a neatly dressed operator in white gloves greets you. "What floor, sir?" Feels like a scene from an old movie, right? But not too long ago, those were real jobs, common jobs, jobs people built entire lives around. And then they were gone, not because the world stopped needing them, not because machines suddenly replaced everyone, but because a few lines of law, written in ink, made entire professions vanish overnight. From lamplighters to switchboard girls, asbestos crews to elevator operators, history is full of careers erased, not by progress alone, but by regulation. So how exactly did the stroke of a pen rewrite people's futures? And what can it teach us about the rules shaping our lives today? Let's dive in. When we talk about jobs disappearing, the first culprit that comes to mind is usually technology. Computers, robots, automation, the machines that replaced people. But here's the twist. Not every vanished career was lost to a gadget. Sometimes, what ended a job wasn't a machine at all. It was a gavel. All across American history, entire professions disappeared because lawmakers decided they no longer fit the times. Some were banned outright for safety, like asbestos work. Others faded because of equality reforms, like elevator operators or jury restrictions. With just a few lines of legislation, thousands of lives could be upended. For some, the change was progress. Families were safer, workers healthier, society fairer. But for others, it meant scrambling to adapt, saying goodbye to jobs that once felt permanent, passed down from father to son, mother to daughter. Think about it. A boy sweeping chimneys in 1900, suddenly outlawed. A veteran projectionist in 2005, replaced by digital rules of cinema. What seemed like secure, lifelong work could vanish overnight, not from obsolescence, but from regulation. That's the hidden power of the law. It doesn't just tell us what we can or can't do, it quietly reshapes the way we live, the work we value, and the jobs we remember only in stories. So what were some of the real jobs erased, not by machines, but by the law? Let's take a look. Once upon a time, certain jobs were so integral to daily life that we barely noticed them. Once upon a time, riding an elevator was more than just getting from one floor to another. It was an experience. Much like hailing a taxi, someone else was in control. In grand department stores or towering office buildings, a neatly dressed elevator operator would greet you with a smile, pull a lever, and gently guide you to your destination. But as safety regulations demanded automatic doors, standardized controls, and emergency systems, the need for human operators started to vanish. By the 1970s, most states no longer required, or even allowed, human operators for modern elevators. And just like that, the job was gone. A relic of a time when human hands and smiles powered the lift. Lamplighters. In the early 20th century, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a lamplighter would take to the streets with a long pole, lighting each gas lamp to guide the way. It wasn't just a job, it was a nightly ritual, as integral to the rhythm of American towns as the setting sun itself. But with the rise of electric streetlights, cities began adopting safer, more efficient lighting, and the lamplighter's role faded into the background, captured only in old photographs and stories passed down through generations. The flames of those street lamps were replaced, and with it, the lamplighter's flame was extinguished. Asbestos handlers. For decades, asbestos was a constant presence in American life. It insulated homes, powered industries, and even made its way into floor tiles and brake pads. But as studies began linking asbestos exposure to deadly diseases, the reality of its dangers became undeniable. By the late 20th century, federal bans and strict EPA regulations quickly phased out most asbestos-related jobs. A victory for public health, but the end of a livelihood for many workers who had spent years handling a substance now known to be deadly. Switchboard operators. Remember the voice on the other end of the line? "Operator, how may I direct your call?" Switchboard operators were once the heart of phone communication, personally connecting calls with a warmth and professionalism that machines couldn't replace. But with the rise of automation and new FCC regulations, their role quickly became obsolete. By the 1980s, this once iconic job had faded into history, leaving only the sound of mechanical prompts and digital beeps in its wake. Film projectionists. If you grew up going to the movies, you might never have thought about the person in the booth, carefully threading film reels and adjusting focus. These skilled workers were the ones who ensured the magic of cinema reached the screen, reel by reel. But as laws required theaters to switch to digital projection systems, the need for these experts dwindled. By the 2000s, many projectionists found their craft reduced to pressing play on a server as the artistry of film projection became a digital, automated task. Chimney sweeps. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, chimney sweeps, including children, climbed the chimneys of homes to clear away soot and ash. It was a dangerous and grueling job, yet essential in a time when fires were the primary source of heat. But as labor laws grew stricter and child labor was banned, the profession slowly disappeared. What was once an essential task was now a ghost of the past, replaced by safer, more efficient heating systems. The closing chapters. These jobs weren't simply lost to progress alone. They were deliberately phased out by the stroke of a pen in the name of safety, modernization, and fairness. While these changes often made life better, safer, more efficient, and more equitable, they also closed entire chapters of America's working history. Left behind are the stories, memories, and legacies of a world that now feels so distant, yet still lingers in the air. So, why did these laws change? In some cases, it was about safety. The asbestos bans, the new elevator codes, the regulations designed to protect workers and the public from dangerous and outdated systems. In other cases, it was about modernization. The shift to electric streetlights, the introduction of automated phone systems, the adoption of digital projection in theaters. These changes reflected a society evolving with technology and efficiency in mind. And sometimes it was about fairness. Stronger labor laws meant ending jobs that were unsafe, exploitative, or damaging to workers' health, like child chimney sweeps or asbestos handlers. But for the people whose paychecks depended on those jobs, the change wasn't easy. One day you had a steady trade, a skill you'd honed for years, something you took pride in. And the next day, the law said that skill was no longer needed. The job you spent decades learning and perfecting was suddenly obsolete. Towns lost familiar faces. Families had to pivot, sometimes starting over entirely. In some cases, the shift wasn't just a job loss. It was a complete reinvention of their way of life. The security of decades-old trades gone in an instant. Progress can feel exciting when you're looking at the big picture, when you're thinking about safer workplaces, smoother services, or more efficient technologies. But when you're the one affected by that change, it can feel like a door quietly closed behind you, leaving you to navigate a world that no longer needs your expertise. That's why remembering these jobs isn't just about nostalgia. It's about honoring the people who lived them, the trades they mastered, the lives they shaped. These were the workers who helped build the country we live in today. And though the jobs themselves have faded away, the legacy of their work lives on in the changes they brought, the communities they built, and the histories they left behind. These weren't just job titles on paper, they were people. The elevator operator who remembered your name and made each ride feel special. The lamplighter who brought a warm, comforting glow to your street every night. The projectionist who ensured that every film you watched looked perfect on the big screen. The laws may have taken the job away, but they didn't erase the memories. And maybe that's why we still talk about them, because they remind us of a time when work felt personal, human, and connected. A time when your job wasn't just a way to make a living, it was a way to make a difference, to be part of something bigger. Now it's your turn. Do you remember a job from your childhood that no longer exists? Maybe your parents or grandparents worked in one? Maybe you did. Drop your story in the comments. We read every single one. We want to hear your memories, your reflections. If this trip down memory lane sparked something in you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Until then, let's take a moment to appreciate the work people do today, because one day it might only live in our memories.